This is Ed and Tony, and we'll see you after this song in the Tampa Morgue.
What's up? And thank you for tuning in to the Tampa Morgue. This is Tony. That was Iron Cross from the 1987 EP, band from Pensacola, Florida. You know, it's hard for us to figure out who to play and not get sued. So that's why we don't play many songs on this show, is because we don't know, like, you know, these days you got to be careful with what you play. Hopefully they don't want to come after us because they ain't going to get much. But, you know, when I'm with my partner, Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, Ed?
What's up, Mr. Anderson? How you doing?
Good, man. Good, man. You remember Iron Cross, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Like,
old school.
Yeah, I always dug those vocals on Mike Skelton. I know he passed away a couple years ago, and I think two of them, actually, I think Rex Allen passed away also, but you had Tony Blair on drums. You know, they were, that whole period, the 1986 album was great. The EP, they only put out one full length, you know, but they were definitely a killer band. And the bassist Dan and Tony, I believe they were also part of the speed metal band from Longwood, Florida, Tempter, um, which I think actually Tempter. You remember the band Azrael, which Kenny Andrews related, right, from
Yes.
Obituary?
Yep.
Yeah, so they had Steve was part of that band. But yes, so Azrael, that's a name I haven't thought of in a while. We all know Kenny from what he played with Pain Principle. And there's one I'm forgetting also, unfortunately. He played with Andrew WK also. So, you know, there might be another one I'm missing even, but yeah. So Ed, you had a good week finally, huh? Yesterday you entered a very legendary place that, me and you have talked about many times, and a place that most of the records we own or have some kind of relationship to. You were at Morrisound yesterday. Can you give us any
Yes.
update, or what can you tell us? Or
Yeah, it was the new Morrisound. They moved from the legendary spot. And speaking of that, Jim Morris was doing the engineering yesterday, and it was a bucket list for me because I'd never recorded at Morrisound, and Scott Burns, Jim Morris, Tom Morris, his brother, you know what I mean? Legendary dudes. And he told me and Lee, that their old location just got legendary, like, what do they call that? A
they can't
historic
knock it down.
They put a historic marker there for what it was for death metal and music in general. So now it's a historic landmark in Temple Terrace, which is killer because
I think the last time I was there was probably when Obituary was doing a listening party for Frozen in Time, I believe.
That was some
time ago. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Was it intimidating at all? I mean, Morris, you always, it's...
it was weird. There wasn't, back in the day when you went in Morrisound, like I went there a couple times with this guy Ed, and he would take me there. Like Sadis was there, Sepultura, so there's a million people wandering around while these guys are recording, and that was intimidating because I was a young nobody. But it was just me, Lee, and Jim, so it was so laid back, and it was. I got to say, Jim is the consummate professional. I didn't feel intimidated at all. He was straight up awesome, and he made it very easy to work for sure.
And the soundboard you said was pretty impressive, huh?
Oh my God, dude! I learned. Let's just say this: Lee was working on something after we were done. That's kind of personal. I really can't talk about that, but just watching what they were doing, like with all these programs and just the engineering aspect of it, it made me walking in my room to do pre-production with this Focusrite junker realize how shitty I am at trying to record. But I'm not trying to be professional, but when I see the stuff I saw in the programs and how he was taking two vocals that were like not necessarily recorded in pitch, and he could change the pitch to sound like, and I use this for reference, like the old school Beatles when they would harmonize their vocals and they sounded like literally in tune. That's what it would sound like, and it was incredible. And just being in the vocal booth, and just experiencing that all together was definitely. I knocked something off my bucket list yesterday, and I'm very, very honored to have done it for sure. And getting to sing for Monstrosity also is pretty fucking killer. So that helps too. Yeah, my voice is a little blown out today, as you can tell. I mean,
dude, I feel like shit. And for everybody, we're gonna try to make this last as long tonight. It was hard. I basically had to crawl to the computer. I've been sick for like 3 days. We wanted to get a show in this week because we have some stuff coming up next week. So we'll update you on that. But yeah, I think that you going to Morrisound's awesome. I mean, I think of Morrisound, and I tell you what studio I was really Eric Rattan's studio. Mana is just. I was over there a couple times, and I was there when Christian was doing not the last album, the album before that. And it was totally like, Rattan's a total pro, and like we always say, like, I mean, you see the standard he has, and even what he's done with. I mean, what he's done with Cannibal. I mean, Eric Rattan is definitely
he scares me.
Yeah, he's a beast, man.
He scares me.
I know he's an Eagles fan and stuff, but
he'd have told me to pack up my mic and my backpack and told me to get stepping, I'm sure.
I've heard that several times. I heard you have to be. I think we talked about it on a couple.
Yeah, you got to be
one of our first episodes. You got to be ready.
Yeah, you got to be on point. And you know what? That's what makes him a pro. And I'm sure Jim's the same way, and everybody's the same way. But when you're laying down drums or guitars, that's very tedious because you're doing it repetitively. And if you're not on point and you're wasting time, I'm pretty sure that's what probably gets him irritated. And I've seen it. I've seen a lot of engineers get irritated when people aren't prepared. I mean, you have one job, right? You go into the studio, you're spending money, whether it's your money, the label's money, whatever. You have to be ready to go. And but like I said, I've known Eric a long time, and one of the nicest motherfuckers you will ever meet. And I mean that motherfucker in a very pleasant way, but do not piss him off, because I have seen it. And yeah, the jersey comes out real quick. It's got to be a Jersey thing. It has to be a Jersey thing for sure. But
as I always say,
great dude.
My first introduction to Eric Rattan is Ripping Corpse, of course. Being from Jersey.
Yep.
That was one of my first, and I think the guy is just awesome. I think also, at least is what I heard, or he told me possibly, was he doesn't take on 100 bands either. He does a few albums a year there, I believe. Like, I think Goat Whore did their album there. Cannibal Corpse did an album there, maybe several. I'm sure Cannibal does. Like I said, I could be wrong, which they have an album coming out, tomorrow?
The 22nd, yeah.
22nd one is today. So it's the 21st. Yeah, 21st.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yep.
Tomorrow. But yeah, it's a cool studio. It's actually right by, I used to live over there, actually, like right down the street from his studio, and, much respect for him. He's Eric Rattan. I mean, Hate Eternal. I remember just standing, I saw him at State Theater. I don't know. It was the Locust album. I don't know what like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. The years just fly by so fast, man. Like, our buddy Fred, I was telling you earlier, Ed, this guy Fred, who we've been friends with for years, who used to come to all me and Ed's shows. He just messaged me the other day, and he was basically, he actually messaged me last night. I was like, I can't believe I haven't seen you guys play, in the band that me and Ed do together, Generic Christ, since 2018? Because I think our last show, was it 18 in Orlando?
It was 19 in Orlando, but the last time we played in Tampa was probably 2018. Yeah, that's been a long time. I mean, you don't realize, how. Well, I mean, you got to remember, we lost a year and a half at least of our lives with the pandemic. So that kind of
for me, remember, I had no kids that last show in 2019. Now I have 2 daughters, so it's been it's been pretty crazy.
You remember, my kid was videoing.
Yeah, I mean, your kid. I remember when your daughter and your son was in Circle Studios when we would rehearse, and they were just little kids, and now, I mean, they're freaking adults now almost. It's absolutely insane. And I know my 2 daughters, I feel like time is just flying now. Even every time my oldest daughter walks out of the room, I'm like, man, she's taller. It's like, what the hell's going on around here, She's all into Alice Cooper now, which makes me happy, and like, she's all, that's her new thing. So, hey, but that's a blur. I can't believe it was 2019, because I believe it was. We played with Obituary. God, I know I have the poster
Skeleton Witch
somewhere. Was it Skeleton Witch and Pallbearer?
Pallbearer, yep.
And
that's it.
I want to say there was one more band too that I'm forgetting, but
there probably was. That was a
crazy.
Weird
it was
show.
So long ago. It was that. Yeah, it was at the, which is now Pete bought that club, but that was the Haven at that time period when we played there. Now it's the Conduit, right?
Yes. And apparently it's completely been redone. So I'm anxious. I haven't seen it. I haven't been up there, but
I heard they moved the bar. If you remember, the bar was like directly in the middle or something like that.
Right in the fucking middle, which, if that place was packed, you weren't seeing the show if you were by those pool tables where the merch was in the back. You were, it reminded me of like the old mug, the second mug. Remember
the back area, there was that bar window.
Where the bathroom was, there was like that whole area, and if you were back there, you weren't seeing anything. But Yeah, I heard he changed it, and that would be killer to play. Yeah, I mean, as far as Rattan, you know, their first tour was with Corpse. It was Diabolic, Hate Eternal, God Dethroned, and Cannibal Corpse.
God
And that
Dethroned is a
was
band that I forget about sometimes. They were a great band, though. I thought,
yeah, oh yeah,
I
and
always
nicest,
dug God Dethroned.
nice. Henry was one of the nicest guys, man. Yeah, very, and you know my story on that tour, so I don't want to rehash that shit. But but seeing them as a three-piece with Derek Roddy and Jared Anderson, Hate Eternal was just night after night for their first tour ever. And that was really Eric's first band singing and playing guitar. And to do that with one guitar, not two, that's not easy, because he played the rhythm, the leads, I mean, that's a difficult thing to do and sing. So,
I wonder what's
yeah,
harder, playing the drums and singing, or playing the guitar and singing. I always wonder that. I don't know.
I mean, I can't play the drums, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I have to. That's a probably a good
the
question.
Other two, but I can.
Yeah, no, that Hate Eternal. Derek Roddy. We talk about him. He's, Derek's. I mean, the guy is just an awesome drummer. I was really happy for him when he got the Anthrax gig. I've been doing, as you know, the Doomslow album. We did it, which is pretty much done. I mean, I don't know when it's going to come out. We did 2 records, which Ed, you played bass on the whole, the second album. Well, it's not really a second album. We did original. We have I think it's like, I want to say 8 or 9 songs on the original. Then we did a section of covers, which we did some odd covers, which I think they worked out really well. We did some Venom covers, which is that's the norm. But we also did The End from the Doors, and we did House of the Rising Sun, Wasp, yeah,
Sleeping in the Fire.
Yeah, I grew up loving Wasp.
Mr. Crowley.
Mr. Crowley, yeah. So but Derek killed it. I mean, you did a great job on the bass on the cover album, and you did play on one of the originals on the new album too. So once I figure out when that's coming out, like I said, we're in the final stages now of that. Then I'll play some of that on the show, because no one can sue me because it's our band. So, I just don't know the legal loopholes of like playing other artists. You don't. I read about it, but I think that we can play our own. But yeah, so that when that's ready, we'll do that and stuff. But we were talking earlier about albums that came out this year, and I was asking you because I only heard the new Suffocation album once, but you've checked it out.
The album's not out, but they played a couple. They have I think a song or two out, and it's well, because a lot of people kind of like when the Massacre came out, no cam, blah blah blah, the fucking bullshit people talk, oh, this guy's the new singer, the other guy isn't there, we've been through that a million times.
I've heard some of it, and the guy who did the guy who sang was actually the drummer in Disgorge, Rick Myers. Yeah, he was actually the drummer in Disgorge.
Yep.
And I heard he's done it. I mean, dude, what was your opinion on the vocals?
I'm going to tell you that I love Frank. I know Frank. The infamous 70,000 tons of metal, Frank the Tank. Go look at the YouTube. Go search Frank the Tank on 70,000 tons if you want to see the funniest shit you'll ever see. But Frank Mullen is like one of the, just cool guy, and he's a Cowboys fan. So that makes him even better. But no, when he left, and I know he was sporadically jumping in and out at the end, Ricky would do it, then Frank would jump in. But when he finally left, a lot of people were like, how do you do a record without Frank? But listening,
this is what the first record he didn't do, correct? I heard a song, something Enslavement. Yes. I can't remember the full title of it, but it was something Enslavement. I heard from
I believe this is the first record with Ricky. So but when they played, because we had done sporadic shows with them, of course, the 70,000 tons, Frank was there, and we played in Costa Rica, Frank was there. So most of the stuff I had done was with Frank, but we played the Mass Destruction that we were talking about with Bobby.
Oh, Bobby.
When Violence played. Because it was basically Monstrosity played, Violence, and then Suffocation headlined. And I could tell you this. I thought I've heard loud. Suffocation was so fucking loud and so powerful, and that dude's vocals were absolutely fucking heavy as shit. And the fact that they hadn't played a show, that was the first show they played in 2.5 years because of COVID. You know, they were in New York, so they were locked down. I mean, those dudes were, they were in Fuckville. So, yeah,
Long
they
Island,
were,
right? I don't know if they're
dude,
still up in there, but
they absolutely crushed. And then
yeah,
they played right after Monstrosity at MDF. And I went over and watched that, even though we had just got off. I'm like, I'm going to, you know, because it.
And Rick was on vocals for that, correct?
Yes, yeah. He had been since Mass Destruction. He was the guy, as far as I know. When they came back from COVID, when everything restarted, from if I remember correctly, he's been the singer since that.
I think you're right. I know. I've only heard, like I said, there's a tune. I can't remember. I just heard it. It was the Enslavement. It's one of the new tunes. But yeah, I mean, he sounded, you know, I mean, like it's hard when you change members because as we get older, we understand why it happens. It's just hard to, as a fan, right? You never like to see the guys be changed out. But I mean, you know, I don't think Suffocation is going to disappoint. I don't have the release date for that either. Like I said, they had the track out, but I don't know the release date for it. This year we've had, you know what, you had, it's, you know, for, I don't know about you, Ed, but like, I try to stay relevant with like, paying attention to like what's going on now, because, you know, you get stuck in the past sometimes because, you know, there's so many great records from the past. It's hard sometimes to kind of check out new stuff, but obviously we know Obituary put Dying of Everything out this year, which was, you know, they don't disappoint. I'm always surprised with that band. Not really, but kind of how they just pick up steam every time they put out an album. They never slow down. It's like insane.
And the thing is as heavy as they are, you would think they would run out of shit to write, and they just seem to. I mean, you know, we were talking in Morrisound yesterday, and because of course Obituary recorded at Morrisound, and Cause of Death was such a killer album.
What is your favorite? What do you think, Ed? I'm gonna ask you a question, which is hard, and I think it's gonna go by timetable. For me, I know it is. What is your favorite? What do you think is your favorite Obituary album? I'm gonna say Cause of Death because I love Slowly We Rot, but Cause of Death is probably when I really started getting into Obituary because I'm younger a little bit than you by a couple years.
I think I'm with you only because if you look, when I look at their live show, a lot of stuff they play is off Cause of Death, and at least it was. I know their catalog's getting bigger now, so they probably have to, you know, be a little more. Every time you come out with a new record, you gotta play something off of it.
You gotta play some of it, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's just so many killer songs on that record that it just, you know, it's just one of those albums that no matter how far in the future we get, when you put it on, you remember how badass it is. And you know, there are a lot of albums that do that, but yeah, that's my favorite one for sure.
Excuse me. Sorry.
I'm also a little biased because, you know, I like those guys, and, you know, obviously I have a pretty extensive history with Terry. So
well, here's a question for you. Do you think that death metal bands and like more, let's just say extreme bands, I really, you know, I hate just to say one kind, but I believe that the average fan appreciates more of the underground bands to play new material, because, you know, if you go see a huge band like just say like an Aerosmith or like a Cheap Trick, which nothing against those bands. I mean, Cheap Trick's great, whatever. But I think that the underground scene appreciates new songs more than, as they say at the arena shows, where, okay, it's the bathroom break, let's go to the concession stand, they're playing new music. What do you think about that? You think that's true or not?
I think there's two sides to that. Back in the early days, and I say early days meaning for us late, you know, earlier on, like 10 years ago, when we didn't have Sirius liquid metal, and we didn't have Spotify and Apple Music and all the bullshit they have. We had to go by radio, or you played the cassette or the CD or whatever over and over, right?
Or college radio, as we talked about WSOU and stuff like that.
But when you had, and we talked about this with both Bobby and Pat, when you had Headbangers Ball or the the after school special, that's what I like to call it.
How weird was that? Now, how different do you think now that we all know that they were showing up in the daytime for Headbangers Ball and just like, I mean, what a crock of shit, right? I thought they were hanging out, partying.
Yeah, no, that kind of ruined the. Well, you know what? It's good to know because I like I like when the curtain gets pulled back. But yeah, when we were watching, all that stuff, they would play the same Testament, Death Angel, this Overkill, same shit over and over and over and over and over, and then finally you're like, I don't want to hear it no more. And that's what happens with radio today. Like my wife, for whatever reason, she likes country music all of a sudden. Then all of a sudden one day I get in the car and she's got 98 Rock or one of those the old the old 70s, whatever, I forget how they want to genreize it now. Classic rock, I think they're calling it now, which is funny because it's like music from the 80s and early 90s are calling that classic rock, which fucking,
isn't that crazy? Like when you hear
yeah, but I hear she's playing that and I'm like, what's up with this? And she's like, they play the same fucking songs every hour. I've heard this one song 4 times, I swear to God, in 2 hours, she told me. And I'm like, because it's commercial. They're paying for that.
Sirius started doing that, though. I noticed. Sirius does the same shit. I'm kind of surprised.
I used to enjoy, and we already had our discussion about Howard Stern, and, I just can't no more. I mean, I used to love him, but I just can't. And
I would love to get Richard Christie on the show, though.
Yeah, that or Sal, I'd have him too, because he seems like a freak. Sal. But for me, I would bounce between, like, if I was driving, listening to football on Sirius, or listening to liquid metal, or even the hair one. I forget what they call it. Hair Nation,
right? I think it's called.
Yeah, and then Ozzy's Boneyard. So my son, at his job site, they listened to Ozzy's Boneyard, and he said, "Dad, how many fucking times can I hear the same AC/DC song?" He goes, "Do they only have one song
over and over?"
Yeah, he's like, "Do they only have one song?" And I'm like, "No, they have like fucking 50 albums." He's like, I told him, he goes, "If I hear, I forget it, Shake Me or something, whatever it was.
Shook Me All Night Long.
Shook Me All Night Long, that's it. Shake Me, Cinderella."
What bothers me, they play, and I get it on the Boneyard because it's definitely a biased channel, I think. Like, I don't know this, of course, because I don't listen to it too often, but I would like to know if they play any not Ozzy, but any Dio tracks from Sabbath. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Sharon pulled a plug on that.
I can tell you, I don't think I've ever heard them play any Dio, Ozzy, or even
Tony
Dio,
Martin.
Dio.
I mean, you think about, you'll never hear like anything from the Headless Cross, which is a great record. I mean, people, I don't think for some reason Martin, I don't know what it was.
Or the Born Again record.
Born Again's a great record.
Nobody ever plays anything from that on these channels. Yeah, so my point was that they're just fucking repetitive, and the radio's repetitive. So I think what happens is, unless somebody's playing these songs and you get them ingrained in your head, when you hear them live, you're probably going to walk out because you're going to go, "I don't know this shit." And that's your bathroom break, your 7th inning stretch. That's what it is. And you're right. I think you're right. And I think because for too long, it was shoved down your throat to where when you heard it, you were like almost entranced to stand there and listen to it. Unfortunately, I think with Spotify, with Apple, and all the new streaming things, I think it's really difficult to have something crammed down your throat unless you're cramming it down there yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and there's still, like I said, I still try to listen to the new releases. Vomitory put out another one. And Vomitory, I remember back in the Rivet Rag days, we interviewed Vomitory. They put out All Heads Are Gonna Roll on Metal Blade. And the thing about Vomitory is you always know what you're going to get with a Vomitory record. Incantation pulled out another Jersey originated in Jersey.
Unholy
And
Defecation.
Harry from Revenant does a guest on there, where hopefully we can get Harry on here soon.
But Cattle Decapitation put out one.
Yeah.
Parasite.
Yeah.
And, at least these guys, one thing I will say about these bands is Incantation, Cattle Decapitation.
Rotten Sound put out one this year. Apocalypse.
Cryptopsy. You know what you're getting. Yeah, the new Cryptopsy is. I heard. I have it. I've only listened to 4 or 5 songs at the gym, but I have to tell you that I'm from the old school Lord Worm days.
That's what I was going to ask you. How is it? Because I haven't heard anything from the new Cryptopsy. I've kind of Lord Worm also.
Again, Lord Worm's been gone a long time, and they've been through a bunch of different guys, but it sounds like Cryptopsy, man. I mean, it's old school Cryptopsy. I mean, same thing with Cataclysm. I'm pretty sure they put out a record this year, and you know what you're getting when you hear it. It's what Mauricio's bringing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just what you're gonna get. That's why the new Cannibal, I think, to me, because
the last Cannibal was crushing. I mean, Rattan in there. Fucking...
Well, this when I heard those, because I think if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 songs they've released. I know 2 for sure. I tell you, maybe 3.
Pat O'Brien, we love Pat O'Brien. I think, I'm so happy that he's been doing shit with Exorder. I don't know what the situation is with that now, but I think Pat O'Brien,
Dude, I told you when my shit got stolen, Pat and Jack Owen were like the 2 pushing the charge to try to get me endorsed, which was killer because they didn't have to do any of that. They're in Cannibal Corpse. I was
Those guys were always band. So cool. You remember we were talking about this.
Alex,
me and you.
Listen, man, all of them dudes, Alex, Paul, George. There's not one guy in that band that I can point to and go, that fucking guy, man. Behind the scenes, I'm like, that dude's a fucking dick.
Well, I remember when Jack called when we were doing the Venom Club over in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Jack would hang out there. When Owen would hang out there, he got a hold of me. I think it was like the night before this. And he goes, "Hey, man, do you mind if we shoot a video at the club?" Which they shot that Decency Divide video there. And I remember, all Cannibal came in that next day. I remember talking to George about football because he's a Bronco fan. Obviously, I'm a Raider fan. And I remember watching them. They were in that back room because there was 2 stages, if you remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which the backstage where they did the video, the old manager of the club was actually murdered there and lit on fire. So we called it like the murder room, And if you remember, it had all the paint on the walls, the red paint. I'm sure there's videos on YouTube of it. And actually, the Decency Defied video is shot in that room because Cannibal was, doing the same song over and over again on that stage. And they used our bartenders as some of the girls in the video. And, Reagan was in that video. They were like chopping off her tattoos or some shit like that. So it was a killer or something. But yeah, they were great guys. I mean, and it was really a thrill for me. Like, I remember when Jack got a hold of me, he's like, "Hey man, do you mind if we come in and shoot a video at the club?" And of course, I was like, hell yeah. It was a very exciting thing.
Well, and it also helped back then get you some notoriety to the club. Because let's see. I can, if my memory serves me right, I've played that club, I want to say at least 4 times that I can.
You remember the death mural? We had the death mural, like the Chuck death mural in the beginning, on the front. When you walked in, we had it painted on the wall, and it was a cool club. It only lasted.
I only played the backstage one time, and I don't know why we played that stage. Maybe you guys didn't sell enough tickets. Yeah, well, every time I played there was with Contorted. But that was the night with Malevolent, and we remember that night very well.
I remember Deicide play, and you were with me at this night when Deicide played at Venom, and I remember if you remember, there was 2 stages in this club because it used to be a packaged liquor store, and then a strip bar, and on the front stage there was a strip pole, and which, I mean, there is still videos because I think you can see Diabolic videos and of this. You could actually see the the strip pole and all this stuff. And there might be a Deicide video on there even of some live footage. But I remember
there's contorted. We played that Deicide show.
I remember seeing a picture of Damien when he still had hair. Yeah.
Well, there's a video because I seen the video and it was weird to see Damien with hair.
Yeah, because he was playing on that stage. We had the strip pole in the middle because you couldn't. The thing was you couldn't remove the strip pole because somehow it was kind of held up part of the fucking roof. There was some kind of thing there.
The structural.
And I remember, and I remember Glenn watching Deicide play. This was when the Hoffmans were in the band, and because I remember like when they came in that morning, and everyone, Eric, Brian, everyone was very cool. Steve was awesome. They all came in that morning, and but I just remember seeing Glenn up there and the big strip pole in front of him as he's playing. And I forget what the name of it used to be, something like Larry's liquor store or some shit like that. But he made a comment about it while he's playing.
Yeah, he said, he goes, "What the fuck is this stripper pole?" Yeah, this fucking stripper pole. He was great, man. Yeah, they were great dudes, man. I remember that was one of the first times that I really had a real conversation with Glenn because usually it was in passing, and there were a couple times that he did some shit that, I was like, "Holy fuck!" And I know I've told you about him, but I don't think I'm prepared.
He was a little intimidating, but he was cool, man. We had to pay him that night. Once he got the money, he was cool, But I remember
they were all cool, man. I mean, I remember talking to Brian, and he was, and Brian's always been fucking a killer dude.
Yeah, I've always gotten along with Brian.
Yep. It was weird.
That was that club though. The worst. The thing about that club was, it was our worst shows. We had a shitload of punk shows there, which I love punk music, but we had the problem with the punk music is that the band guarantees were only like $500, $400. I remember when the Murder Junkies played there, and I think we paid them $500, and we stuck them out. My buddy Harley at that time worked at a place called Showgirls over on Starkey Road over in Seminole, Florida, and that was part of the deal. We paid them $500. And we stuck the band, the Murder Junkies, at the strip bar for the afternoon. They hung out there. It was Dino and Merle. And Jeff Clayton was actually the singer at that time from Anti-Scene, which I love Anti-Scene. I think Jeff's a killer guy. He was actually fronting the band at that time. They still had Weber playing with them. But that show was the most fucked up show we ever had. Because we had already had, if you remember correctly, that's when Hell on Earth was going to do their Suicide show. And we opened up, I think it was like 6 months later. The news started coming to the news station started coming to the venue because Billy from Hell on Earth announced that they were going to do a live Suicide at the show, which he had told us. He called
Bubba.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had called Bubba and told him what was going to happen. And, of course, Bubba took... We're talking about Bubba the Love Sponge. He's a radio show guy in Tampa, Florida. Well, he's pretty well known, but
because he was on Sirius also at one time.
He was, with Howard. But he had called and was telling him what he was going to do, and people were like, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
Well, he told us it was bullshit. Bubba was bringing him in.
Well, Bubba used to bring him in, and he was coming in and making what they were called rat milkshakes, where he was making milkshakes in the studio out of rats and people were drinking it.
Oh, my fucking God.
Yeah, so he would do rat coffins and stuff like that. Billy was a weird dude, but I remember when he had called and said, "Yeah, this dude's going to do it." And I remember Bubba tried to talk him out of it, going, "Dude, this isn't going to end well for you. I'm telling you right now." And lawyers were calling in the show, if I remember right.
So we knew it was bullshit, though. We had asked Billy when they wanted to book the show there because people started contacting us. We had like news crews showing up because supposedly the deal was it was a dying fan, someone who was sick.
Right. And he wanted them to end his life live during the show.
Of course, we booked the show, but we knew it was. He had told, of course, like it was a fucking mess, but. He had booked the show. He told us though, this is not going to be, it's not really going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I remember that. That was another, but that Murder Junkies show. And for those, most people know, like the Murder Junkies, Gigi Allen, but like I said, Gigi had already passed obviously. And it was Jeff Clayton headline he was the front man at that time. And I'll never forget. So we booked this show and I mean, it was fucking packed, Ed. Like there was like that was probably actually we did the James Murphy benefit there with 6 Feet Under.
Yep.
But this show, all these kids start showing up, but they're all like, it was weird. Like I don't know I'm trying to figure out how to word this in today's culture without sounding like or without who they can't cancel me because the hell they're gonna cancel.
Normal. They did not look like Murder Junkie fans.
Well, we had you would have a group of like 16 Asian kids show up, and then 16 skinheads show up, and I'm like, so there was like gangs showing up. So we booked this band to open up. Oh God, what was their name? Something the Dead Whores, they were called. We had no idea they were. How would you put it? They were kind of I guess they were kind of like a
white supremacist band.
Yeah, kind of like a fucked up band like this. We had no idea because we had been recommended to book them by Merle Allen actually, and all of a sudden, man, like so they're playing. And it's not there's nothing going on really, but it's packed, man, just packed. You knew something was up. It was a very tense vibe in the place. Like you could just feel it. Like it was pretty stressful. And then when the Murder Junkie started playing, I want to say it was like third song in or some shit. And there is video of this somewhere on YouTube.
I remember this. I remember this when this happened.
Everyone started fighting, dude, stabbing each other. There was like
didn't the club get tore up too?
So we tried to stop it. There was like 4 of us who was, that basically ran the club. Me, Mark, Matt, and I forget this fucking guy's. We had a bouncer who actually stole the money box one night, so I forget his name, but he actually like stole the box from us and the cash one night from a certain evening there. And we were already not making tons of money at this place. But dude, it was like all out brawl, man. They were beating the shit out of the non-racist skinheads were beating the shit out of the opening band on the floor. Blood was everywhere, like broken bottles. People were getting stabbed. There was people getting arrested on cars outside. We had lost control because what are you going to do? I mean, you got 4 guys
can't
and like
control that.
300 people, 400 people, and I'll never forget. Like people are getting arrested. There's blood all over the place. Total chaos. And Dino is on the drums naked. Because for those who don't know, Dino plays naked on the for the Murder Junkies. We know, me and Ed, because we won't get into it, but we played shows with the Murder Junkies with Generic Christ, and we had they borrowed our drums, and our drummer the drum stool was not respected. But yeah, he would play naked, and I'll never forget the cops arresting people, and Dino was doing a drum solo. The rest of the band was leaving the venue. And going outside, Merle's over at the merchandise selling t-shirts while everyone's getting stabbed, and I'll never forget the cops just yelling at Dino, "Stop fucking playing!" And he was just fucking playing away with his green hair, and it was just that was an insane show. And there is, I don't know what you would look under, but there is footage on YouTube of you can actually, if you watch it, you can see some of the fighting.
I do remember that. I remember that very well.
And I had spoken to Jeff Clayton afterward, probably like about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when Anti-Scene came to the Brass Mug in Tampa. We had talked about that show, and I even talked to Merle about it actually, like years later. And it was, that was insane, man. Like that was and I didn't even get that was just it was even worse than I made it sound. But the punk shows there were insane because kids had no money, they didn't drink, but they pissed all over the outside of the place. They would buy the tickets, because the tickets were like $10 for these shows. I mean, we booked, if punk bands came through, we pretty much booked them. We had like the Virus play, obviously the Murder Junkies, lower class black brats. We had a shitload of them. Like we were, we had bands staying there at night. We would actually let bands sleep there if they had to travel to another town, So it was pretty crazy club. I mean, the stuff that would go on in that place was insane, but the punk shows were always rough because you weren't making anything. Because even though the band was, you book a metal band, a bigger metal band, you were paying back then maybe like $2,000 or $3,000 for some of the bigger bands.
Right.
For the punk bands, you're paying $500. Problem is that with the metal bands, you're having people who drink. So because we had Chrissy in there, Hate Eternal, Malevolent.
Or you have bands that show up day of saying that they want more money.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. That maybe one day, that's a whole nother deal. Yeah, but the ones who are like, "Hey, man, let us play this show," but we just want to do it, and then they're like trying to get paid like a national. But yeah, that was insane. I learned a lot of things. I learned I never wanted to be a club owner. I learned I didn't want to book bands anymore. Yeah, that was pretty much the two big lessons.
Yeah,
But the
it
punk
takes it
shows
out
were
of you, man.
dangerous to do. Yeah, it
It
was.
takes it out of you, man.
It was. Well, we had everything going on. We had band practices and stuff. Like we let bands practice there. It was like I tell you what, Venom was cool. It's just not surprising that it didn't last because first of all, we didn't have a liquor license. We only had beer and wine and some kind of
Right.
bullshit. Because the liquor license was like at that time, I want to say it was like I don't know, man. I don't want to misquote, but it was really expensive to get a liquor license. And band
And
guarantees weren't cheap. If you will.
And yeah, and the problem with that too is when you're paying certain bands $2,000-3,000 and you got to make rent and you got to hope that you pack it out enough with tickets to be able to make something or break even. And breaking even, you can't stay in business breaking even. You can't. No matter what you do, you just can't do it. Yeah, well,
yeah, people murdered in there and stuff. I mean,
if you think about it, though, it's kind of like the Sunset Club we've talked about. It's a moment in time,
yeah. So if anybody sees that Cannibal Corpse video for Decency Defied, that was shot at that club.
There.
Yeah, It was recorded in the back room. It was recorded in most of it, and that's where the former manager was lit on fire and burnt to death, and all these morbid stories. Yeah, but yeah, no, that was I don't even know how we got into that, but
Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, it's
Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, but they have a new album coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, and those guys have been writing killer music forever. I believe, just as a fan and a musician, that adding Eric just sent them over the top, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon because they've got the ultimate. And again, no disrespect to Pat, I've loved Pat. But this lineup is 100% stacked. If this was your football team, you'd be going to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? This is real deal. Another record that came out that I've been listening to at the gym, and I told you about this earlier, was the new Dying Fetus.
Taylor Swift?
And that's the other one. And and Justin Bieber. No, the new Dying Fetus. And when they released a couple of tracks, because it had been a while, and
I love that cover, by the way, from Make Them Beg for Death. The cover's awesome.
Yes. I'll tell you this: early days, my buddy Steve Bailey, he was in a band called Execration. This is when I was in Brutality. He's the one that kind of hit me to Dying Fetus, like the demos, like when they had just put the two demos out as a CD, and then they just came out with. I think they were coming out with their first full release, and that was the same time he was hitting me to Cryptopsy, because I he was into that kind of more heavier, chunky, what Dying Fetus was, that jun 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 jun, with the leads all involved and all that stuff, and that was the beginning. And I remember we played with Dying Fetus at the Brass Mug, and they were like kind of fucking, I don't know if they were staying in a car, and they were like, they didn't have a whole lot of money. And I remember Pete Sykes and Lynn Sykes both invited him over to Pete's house for a barbecue. So we all went over there and we were partying with fucking Dying Fetus. And this is the original with John and Jason, the killer, you know what I mean? And hanging out with the dudes, and the fact seeing Jason years later and John, and they remembered it, and remembered me, saying, dude, that was fucking killer. Back then we didn't have no money. That was awesome. You know what I mean? And now,
how old were you probably back then?
Oh shit, man. That was 98. So fuck, 20, 22 years. No, 25 years old, 26 years old.
But you always remember that shit, and you try not to be like. I remember Rob Barrett had a party, and then Grave was hanging out there, and I was young. I was just sitting there like, oh yeah, holy shit! You have to act like you belong there. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? And I'm like,
wow, that was
really. I'm like, oh shit, it's Grave.
Dude, my buddy Trader Ed, I would go over there. He kind of sold some weed. Who does it nowadays? But I'd be over there, and all of a sudden, here's fucking Morbid dudes, and here's the fucking Deicide dudes, and here's these dudes, and James Murphy, and this dude, and that dude, and I'm like, I'd be just sitting there going, dude, how do you know all these motherfuckers? And then he had these, dude didn't really play guitar much. He could, but he didn't. And he had like 4 Marshall stacks, 4. A guy who doesn't play guitar, 4 Marshall stacks, and like 15 fucking Jackson guitars, all on stands in his room, all different shapes and sizes. And these dudes would come in and just fucking start shredding on his shit. And I was like, what the fuck am I, what? You know, I mean, these are dudes I'm listening to, and they're walking in the door to hang out with this guy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're talking about. Jerry Mortolero, a couple parties he had over the years. You walk in, and he's got, like, top-notch dudes running around there. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Then all of a sudden, you become part of the circle, you know? And, you know, I mean, dude, my first tour, again, well, actually, one of my the first big show I played with Eulogy, we opened for Morbid Angel, and this was the Eric Rattan Morbid Angel. You know, Dave Vincent.
Oh yeah.
You know, Eric Rattan, Trey, Pete, and it was at the Masquerade. And I remember we're backstage, and they walked off the stage before their encore, and they're fucking piss and sweat soaked, looking like they fucking are just coming out of battle. And I was like, and you know, Eric just nodded his head and smiled at me, dude. And I'm just thinking, I'm hanging out in the back with fucking Morbid Angel. You know what I mean? I mean, just a year before, I was fucking seeing them practice in people's storage, and just like, hey, you know, waving to them as you're driving by to go to your practice.
Look at people's storage, as we were talking about. You drive through people's storage, and it was like everybody was there practicing. I mean,
yeah,
I remember we practiced
iconic.
We practiced at fuck was it? Audio Lab at one time, Generic Christ. This was, I think Cannibal was practicing next door to us at that time.
Yeah, right next to Paragon Music.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, it's just
I know that.
Hillsborough,
I know that fucking area.
We were over there because
guess what? You were practicing in the same room that I vacated very quickly.
Well, we were in the Diabolic room. I will say one Diabolic story from that time period that I do remember, which it was like pretty hardcore. I remember it's before they were playing a show that week, I think, and I remember that when they were the night before, I want to say, first of all, Gail, the guy who played drums on, Ed knows who he is, but Gail, who played on Infinity Through Purification on that record, was staying with me when they were doing that album in my condo. Which was a great dude. I mean, that guy, I tell you, hear is
no qualms with that guy.
No, he would have these drum pads on his legs, and all day you would just hear, you know, he would just be doing the old, he would just be jamming.
Dude,
we would drop him off there, and he would just jam all day.
9 in the morning, Brian would pick him up at 5:30 at night, 6. He'd take him home to eat and get something clean up, and then they would go right back to Audio Lab. I'm like,
and they would just drop him off. I remember, like, they would drop him off, and then they would go pick him up, and he would be jamming because we would, you know, at that time was with Hurst, but he would go there and would listen by the wall to make sure he was jamming, and he was jamming. But they would turn off the lights the night before the show.
Never heard of her.
To play in the dark, like they would play in the dark, and like before the show, it was like I was like, damn, man, that's some hardcore shit, you know, like making the whole band play in the dark, but. Yeah, that was Audio Lab because we were sharing a room with Diabolic there for a very short time period.
Yeah, I played there twice because the end of Brutality, we had a room there.
See,
you know, so
is that place
is
what is it? Is it gone now?
It is. It's now a Family Dollar. So,
yeah,
they tore the whole building down.
That's just what they needed, was another Family Dollar.
I don't know. Maybe they converted the building into the Family Dollar, or they bulldozed it. But because that's where, outside of Audio Lab, there used to be another little building, and that was where the recording studio was. And that's where the Supreme Evil was recorded, at Audio Lab. So,
do you remember when the Masquerade, or the Ritz, whatever you want to call it now, like the side room? I remember seeing Exhumed in that side room, actually, which is a small little...
Remember?
It was a very small room on the side of the place. It was called the Infinity Room, and that was actually named after the Infinity Through Purification record. So that's something
remember, after a lot of bands, when they wanted to get known, would play shows in that room after
In the side
a
room while the
headline.
big bands are playing.
After, as soon as the headlining band was done, thank you, good night, the lights went up, people are walking out, you'd hear a band starting to jam, and that's where a lot of
most
big
likely
bands,
people
like,
would wander over there and fucking just have a beer and watch them play.
You didn't have to pay to go into that room. If you were already there, you just wandered in and watched the band play, and that's where, like, I saw Exhumed. I saw, I saw a lot of bands that were like what I would call starting out, become legendary bands from that room.
Yeah, well, that was the thing about Ybor. Ybor turned to shit. You know, it's like a dancey club. The whole areas kind of went to that. Like, but the cool thing about Ybor was, even when the Orpheum was over there, you know, what I didn't like was eventually a lot of those places, which it was like this in Jersey too at one time. The metal show would end, they'd kick your ass out and turn it into a dance club, which is always fucking lame. But like, that's one thing about, you would go to a show at the Orpheum and everyone will go over to, which I think it's gone now, Boneyard. I don't even, like I said, I haven't been there for,
they closed it.
I haven't been there for a while.
You were saying the Orpheum was one, remember how many times that one dude, I think he's working at the new Orpheum, the bigger
security
dude
guard,
he would fucking tell us, you got 10 minutes to get out of here. I remember one time, he, God, I'm trying to remember the story.
Someone was trying to fight him one night,
I went there for Terry. Terry gave me, got me in to see Obituary, and I forget who they were playing with. It was a killer show, but when I was walking out, the guy was like saying, "Hey, you guys got to get the fuck out of here," and and I'm like, I said I'm leaving, and I was standing there next to Jill, and he goes, "You too, get the fuck out of here," and
I remember this.
Yeah, I remember Jill was like, before she could even get it out of her mouth, the guy's like, "I don't give a shit. Get the fuck out of here." And Terry
was a dick. I remember he was
Terry
a total dick.
flying down the fucking stairs, and he's like, "Dude, I gotta clear this place out." He goes, "She's my fucking wife, dude." "Oh, my bad, dude." It's like, dude, you don't even know who you're talking to. Oh, a couple times, he
was always pissing that guy. I know exactly what you're talking about. He was always in a bad fucking mood.
He's at the new one. I seen him a couple times at the fucking new one. So yeah, prepare.
My favorite security guard was Big Mike from State Theater, who's played with the Saints. He passed away a few years ago, but he was a cool dude.
You remember the story with Big Mike, right? My story.
I'm not sure. I am a stoner.
We've dude, this is the story we've talked about 1,000 fucking times. So, we were doing a show with, so this was I was in 2 bands at this time. I was doing Execration, sort of. I wasn't fully in the band. I was trying to learn their stuff, and, I wasn't ready. Like, let's be realistic. I didn't know their shit. Well, they booked a show with, and this, so back then, Execration was Steve Bailey, George Sykes, which was Pete's brother, me on bass, that Mark Cooper on drums, and Kobe,
the guy who we've used as an artist many times in the past, and he did the Taste of Death cover actually for us.
And Kobe on Dark Disciple on vocals. And they're like, "Dude, we just got to do this." And I'm like, can't. And let me take that back. Kobe might not have been on vocals. I can't remember. Steve might have been doing all the vocal. I can't remember. But at any rate, it was definitely those 3 dudes and me. And they wanted me to play a show. And I'm like, dude, I can't. So I went out there, and whatever riffs I knew, I played, and the rest I just did like Steve DiGiorgio runs all through the whole fucking set, dude. It was the stupidest, lamest fucking thing I've ever done. But I got to tell you, when I got done, I could not believe that I was up there playing nothing. Like nothing, dude. I didn't know the songs.
I remember this. You almost got in a fight this night.
Yeah. So anyway, the next band up was Monstrosity with Jason Avery, and in the middle of their set, my whatever at the time, my girlfriend, we were standing, and if you remember at the State Theater, they had the long walkways that went up to the bar at the top.
Oh yeah.
And we were standing in the middle, in the fucking middle, not near the pit, in the middle. Oh shit. And basically we some dude grabbed her, took her down into the pit, and started grabbing her like tits and shit. And at this point, I flip out and I grab the dude up and start just dropping kidney punches. So I get swooped up in a headlock, but I dropped my chin because no, it wasn't Big Mike. I was training jiu-jitsu at that time. And so they take me outside. And of course now I've got the fucking issue where my plug's not plugged in. Hang on.
Okay, no problem.
Not my fucking turn.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I'll tell you though, Big Mike, I mean, while you're plugging in your shit over there, he was a great guy, man. He played with the New Orleans Saints, and he was always at that front door at the State Theater in St. Pete. And you would just go there and just talk to him. And he had so many stories, man. He was such a nice guy. I think he passed away probably was 3 years ago. You know, I always think it's less, but time, like I said, it's always like jumping ahead so much. But yeah, Big Mike he was a legend in downtown St. Pete. I mean, people obviously, if you weren't down there.
So of course, my unprofessional shit.
Welcome.
So I get drug outside, and this guy's trying to literally, like, he's trying to break my neck. He's trying to fucking squeeze me and choke me out. And at this point, as we're walking up the fucking walkway, I'm trying to explain to him that he's fucking up and what happened. You know, that I'm in the headlining band and he's fucking up. And he's not listening. So I grabbed his nuts, dude. And I was squeezing his fucking junk so fucking hard that he kept saying, if you don't let go, I'm going to break your neck. And he had nothing, dude. My chin was down. He had nothing. And Big Mike's walking up the whole time saying, dude, let him go. Dude, let him go. Dude, telling the dude to let me go. So they throw me out the front doors. At this point, I look, and there's a line of people who've left the show to come up and see this fucking event. And the guy's in my face outside, and I'm trying to explain. And so Big Mike gets between me, and it was this big white lunkhead motherfucker. And he's like, what happened? And I said, that dude right there, because I had the other dude roped up, you know. I said, that dude right there grabbed her fucking tits and did all this. And people were like, dude, that's what happened. And, you know, of course, Mike's like, dude, fuck you, you're out of here, to the other guy. And Mike's like, dude, go back inside. And the guy's like, what? He's like, dude, he's in the headlining band. Shook my hand, Mike did, and walked me back inside. You know, at this point, I walk in and there's like only half the crowd watching Monstrosity. And I'm like, oh my God. You know, I didn't want to be the disturbing dude. You know what I mean?
People's nuts, man. I don't know how that's
dude,
not possible.
Well, after the show, dude, Avery ripped me apart. He goes, dude, what the fuck? Where'd the crowd go? And when I told him what happened, he's like, dude, you're a fucking douchebag, bro. Really? I'm like, so anyway, we're playing the show. And, you know, Scott Regal, the singer for Brutality, he knew what happened. And the whole time we're playing, that fucking guy is standing in front of me, in front of the stage, just looking at me. And the whole fucking time I'm like giving him the X, the fucking cut throat sign. And I'm fucking pointing at him, telling him I'm going to fucking kill him after the show. And Scott Regal says something like, this next song goes out to this fucking pussy right here. Dude, it was on video. You could see the whole time I was laughing. I wish I knew where that video was. But anyway, it was Thank You, Good Night. And I had this green Ibanez. I love that fucking guitar, dude. And I dropped it on the stage and I jump out. And you remember how high the front of the stage was at the State Theater?
For me, it was extra high because I'm not a big, tall dude. So.
Yeah. Me and Scott jumped off the stage. And as I'm going up the little catwalk, Big Mike puts his hand on me and says, dude, don't bother. That dude cut out of here 10 minutes before you guys got off stage. He said he was out. Because I think he knew that, you know. So Big Mike, and the whole time Big Mike was like, dude, if you ever have any issues, man, just come see me. Come see me and I'll take care of you. And every show after that, he was so fucking respectful to me, man.
He was a good guy, man. He's definitely like when he passed away, it was a shocking thing because he was, you know, the dude was in good shape. He was not that old, man. It's just you just never know, you know. And the State Theater, they've changed that place. It's like I know I said it a few times. It's like some kind of preppy ass venue now. I actually only played at the State Theater once. I played with Todd Downey had passed away, so I played with Children of the Grave. It was a Black Sabbath we were doing Black Sabbath covers with Joe
I
Diaz and
remember.
them, and it was cool though. It was I always went to shows there. I think the last show I saw there was like Nashville Pussy, but yeah, the only time I had played at the State Theater was actually with Children of the Grave. But
That's
yeah,
crazy.
that whole shit, that whole
I
street's gone, man. You remember how that shit used to be there? You had which we always get the local 662. I think that's actually how I can't believe I remembered it.
Yep.
You had the Foo Bar, and across the street
Yep.
you had the State Theater, and that avenue when you would play shows up there at night, it was alive, man. Everyone was like, it was like a fucking.
I will tell
party.
you this: good luck if you showed up. Like, remember when we played at the Foo Bar? We would always get there hours early, because if you get there anytime after 8
You're
o'clock,
parking
good
6 miles
luck
away.
finding fucking parking, man.
It was the place
That's
to
the
be.
only thing that sucked. Well, and
Now
then if you go, what, 2 or 3 blocks down and take a left, you're at Janice Landing. So you've got the whole St. Pete culture all within a 3-block radius, man.
And it was now it's like sushi places and just dumbass
no, St. Pete, and then if you look at Tampa, we used to have the Stone Lounge. We used to have I guess the Crowbar's still there. We had the Masquerade. And then we had the club me and you played at one time that I never played at ever before. I think it was a strip club or it was a promiscuous night bar where we played with Moonspell and
Moonspell and it was Moonspell and
Divine Heresy.
Divine Heresy. And there was another band that played Secrets of the Moon. And I'll tell you why. Secrets of the Moon. So LSK.
That girl.
Yeah, LSK, who I was a fan of from Corpus Christi, who's a black metal band. She actually passed away, I don't know, maybe like 9 years ago. But I was shocked when I saw that LSK was in the lineup for that band. And she was a badass, man. She was like one of the true, with the whole black metal thing. She was into it. Like, that was her thing. And I remember
that was a great show, man.
Yeah. I remember when I saw she was in the lineup, I was like, holy shit, she's playing for Secrets of the Moon. I had no idea. And I still have a photo with her, actually. And, I told her, I went up to her, I was like, man, I remember you from Corpus Christi and this and that. And she was like, totally cool.
What was the name of that? What was the name of that club?
Remember it had a big screen that you could watch yourself play when you played on it.
Dude, I know it's changed. I know it's not the same now. But
was it the Czar?
Czar. That was it. I think you're right. I think you're right. It was the Czar. Because what's his name was the bouncer there for a while there.
And when we played that night, remember Sandoval was there. You had Pete walking around. Like, it was a killer show.
And I think that most of that was because you had what's his name?
Divine Heresy play, right? You had
but Young, the drummer, Tim Young,
yeah,
and then you had Dino, and then of course you had the bass player there. That kid, what was his name? He's dead too.
Did Goatwhore play that show too?
No.
Okay, so for some reason I want to say they played that show, but maybe they didn't. No, I know Secrets of the Moon. So I'd never forget that when LSK was there.
Yeah, that was a band that I kind of dug Divine Heresy until I saw them, because remember the singer, everybody was like, man, you got to watch out because he's kind of a hothead, and he wound up being in another band recently where they wound up booting him because of, I can't think of his damn name. Good singer. Guy could sing. I don't even
remember Divine Heresy. I remember them. I know who they are. I remember playing with them, but I don't remember this. I think I was most impressed.
They were like a Fear Factory. Remember Fear Factory broke up.
I think Promethean Horde played that show with us, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I definitely think Promethean Horde played that. I think us and Promethean Horde were like the locals. Now that I look back.
I don't know why. I don't remember.
That venue, we only played there once. I was actually only in the place once. I think it used to be something else before that. But that was actually a cool club. I mean, that was I was actually surprised they booked the show there, because I don't think metal bands were playing there, really.
No, it was never a metal club. I mean, which is crazy because that was a big fucking stage we played too.
I think Pete Olin booked that because I think it was a Two Beards, because that was it was Two Beards Productions, I believe, which was his booking company at that time
Yeah,
period.
they definitely I just remember that club because we had never um uh
So we had never
we
played
had
there. That was like a
no
weird thing that we got to play there, and it was definitely a cool setup. I mean, yeah, that's I totally forgot about that till you mentioned
yeah,
that. And that was the Ybor.
Tommy Vex, that was the singer's name.
Oh, okay.
And the bass player was Joe Payne, who was pretty well known.
Oh,
And
I know who Joe Payne is. Yeah.
he passed away like a couple of years ago, man, just suddenly. It's just crazy. I think Joe Payne was playing in Nile at some point, if I remember right.
Last time I saw Nile, shit, was at State Theater, talking about State Theater, and I forget who the hell they were with. I want to say, I don't know, because I always mix up my stuff. I want to say it was either with Hate Eternal, maybe, or maybe even Cannibal. I don't remember. But, have you heard any newer bands that you actually like have gotten into that you could think of that are like, it's because I'm always trying to, I tell you, there's a band from Philly called Spider, but it's not, it's, Spiter. It's not like SPI, but that band, man, I tell you, they're coming to Tampa, I think, actually, also. They're a Hell's Headbangers band. But they put out an album. I might have been, I don't know, I think it was 2022, actually, called Bathe the Babe in Bat's Blood. But that band, man, it's like a three-piece. And like their names are like, the bass player's name is Bat, the drums is Snake, and then Richard Spider is the vocalist. But I tell you, man, if I was in Tampa, I would definitely go. That is a band. I did pick up the record from Hell's Headbangers, and it's a really good record. Was it fucking Suicidal Bloodfucker on that? Is one of the songs. Living Nightmare, but that's a cool band, man. And there's a band from Japan, a two-piece band called Pharmacist. I don't think they. I don't know. I think that they don't do shows. I'm sure because there's only two guys, unless they have like some kind of live members or something. But that band, I would definitely recommend that. If you might, I think you would dig Pharmacist. I can't think of the damn name of the album. Is like, what is it? It's just a crazy. It's hard to even. Unspoiled Mental Grounds, but it's like Extremities. It's a gigantic name, but that's a band that it's a grindcore band. But that new album they put out, which might have been 2022, also is pretty good. And I always try to find newer acts to check out. And that's another thing. If anybody ever wants to write us with some suggestions, we'll check it out. We actually have a few things that we'll probably read next show that people have. I want to start like reading some of the things that people send us, but. You can always send us if someone has a band they want us to check out, you can send us a track, and if we like it, we'll play it, because as long as you're not on some big label where we're going to get fucked for playing it,
Right.
But I mean,
if you think about it, a lot of the places I listened to new music that was being released was liquid metal, because I remember that when it was like Knock Loose. And then I'm like, oh, who's this band Knock Loose? And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Everything was Knock Loose. Everything was Knock Loose. Everything was Knock Loose.
Who's that band that Julia was talking about? Frozen Soul, I think. That's a band that I hear, for some reason, I hear a lot about. I haven't really checked them out. I think they put out 2 albums. I need to check them out. Death Metal Dave, actually, Dave Allison. Anybody who doesn't know, Dave Allison, I need to make sure I get the right address for his webpage. He's a big part of the Tampa Bay Metal Museum. And we've known Dave, how long have you known Dave for, Ed?
Oh my God. I've known Dave for probably well over 20 years, man. I've been knowing Dave, he's part of the old school scene people don't realize. Obituary. He went to school with, I think, if I remember right, he was part of the
Trevor, maybe, no?
Yeah, for sure.
And his site, guys, whoever wants to check it out, is www.tampabaymuseumofmetal.com, which actually a lot of our releases are even on there. But I know he's building up they're really working on that, getting a location over in Tampa too. But yeah, Death Metal Dave's been around for a long time, man. You know, he has a show too, actually. But yeah, he's doing the Museum of Metal, which I think is really cool.
In your face.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but he's put together a pretty cool site. I was looking through it.
He had part kind of with you guys in Rivet Rag, because remember, he would do interviews and you guys would be out there doing interviews at the same time. Remember him and Joe Tolley? Joe Tolley was the camera guy, and Death Metal Dave would do interviews, and he would call it In Your Face, and you know that's just how how it went.
I like Dave. I always dug Dave. You know, I mean, he's a cool guy. I just spoke to him recently. I know he's working on a lot of stuff. He had Kelly Schaefer on his show. Actually, I think it was probably 2 weeks ago, and I need to figure out what exactly his. Let me see if I can figure out and let people know what he's on. What is he on? Is he on what kind of what is it, metal radio or something? Because he's actually on Metal Messiah radio. Yeah, he's on there, man. But he has a show there. But Dave's been around forever, like you said. We're gonna get him to come on here also. Actually, I talked to Josh today. So Josh owns VC Collectibles, I believe it is.
Right? VC Collectibles. Yep, in Brandon, Florida.
Yeah, Josh. So we're gonna have him on. And what's cool about that is I always thought I had a pretty. Josh Jones is his name. He was also in Last Sabbath. He was in Grave Rot. But I thought I had a pretty big. And Ed's seen I have some pretty crazy shit, like from musical, just crazy stuff from the past that I've kept. Like, I thought I had a lot of stuff. And I've seen some of Josh's stuff online, man, and he's got it is insane.
And not to mention that he finds these eclectic movies that are from that
great one-sheet posters.
And they have I just saw he posted the other day, hey, got this movie that they only made 100 of, and here he's sitting with 20 of them. Too. And I'm like, how the fuck did you come up with 20 movies brand new that were only 100 made? You know what I mean? So he's that guy. He's the guy that puts shit on. The fucking shit I hate, that I see that he has going on is he'll put something up on eBay, and then somebody will do what do they call it? Where they're like, oh, not as described, and he got burned on something that was super expensive,
I remember. Man. And
I'm and that tried to happen to me, man. And it's amazing how eBay decides when they want to go for you or when they want to go for the customer.
Well, eBay sucks. They're pretty much in favor of the buyer, I think. And they take so much from you, because I remember I probably have, no lie, my wife could tell you too, I probably have 600-700 concert t-shirts, just from playing with bands, or you play a show with a band, you get, Ed used to give me shirts. They were 3Xs though, and I'm a medium, but I still have that fucking Destined to Ruin blanket you gave me. But it's I'll bring it for you. I like it, but it's just, I can wear it. Me and my whole family can wear it at once to protect us from the rain. I have a shitload of concert t-shirts. So we were selling, man, we must have put we made probably 1,500 last summer off old concert t-shirts, and it was only not that many. We were just banging them out. I couldn't believe what they were selling for. But eBay was taking so much fucking money from them.
Yeah, so basically they hit you up now. Well, now it used to be you got hit for eBay and then you got slammed for PayPal. But now eBay got away from PayPal, because instead now they take that extra 4% or 3. Yeah, I think it's 3.9%. So basically, if you sell something for $100, you're losing $14.
It's crazy, man. Such a rip-off.
It's 14%.
But yeah, Josh has some crazy toy, a lot of the old collectible toys. Yeah, he's got
he's got a lot of stand-up video, arcade games, actual real deal arcade. Yeah, he's got to be.
I thought I had a lot till I saw his shit, man, and I'm like, man, it's pretty crazy. He's gonna come on, I think, next week. We're gonna have next week we have Lord Armand coming on from Dark Funeral. He'll be on Tuesday, so that should be up Tuesday night. And shit. I think the first time I saw Dark Funeral was probably with Cannibal Corpse in, I think, 2002 at the State Theater. Going back to that again, it was them, Pissing Razors.
Yep.
Incantation. Incantation. And it's actually one of my wife's favorite bands, Dark Funeral. So he's coming on next Tuesday. I just confirmed it with him today. And I'm trying to think anything else we got going on, Ed, that you could think of? Are we gonna?
Nope.
We may come on Sunday too. We haven't decided. We may come on Sunday, but Tuesday I know we're gonna come on, and then Josh is gonna come on. So Josh will probably come on Thursday, most likely. Then, if that's the case, because with Lord Aramon, that's gonna be a whole full show right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Bobby G, Bobby Gustafson last week was awesome. Why may not? Before we go, what do you think of having him on?
A big thank you. Listen, talking to Bobby was definitely, we grew up with him, and talking to him for 2 hours and 15 minutes was fucking, it's surreal. You know what I mean? And then getting to talk to him, like, of course, before we went hand, afterwards too. We talked to him for another 20 minutes.
He's a great guy.
I wish we would have recorded afterwards.
Always the best part of the interviews usually come out. They're always good interviews, but after when we hang out, when we're just us three hanging out.
I'm going to start setting up my fucking phone and recording this shit.
Then they won't. Don't say it. Then they'll bail on it. No, we had Vincent Crowley and all them. It's like always. It's like we finish the interview and then afterwards, it's always like a pretty cool bullshit session of off the record,
that's what I'm talking about. Cool. I mean, they're not. It's not like they're
It's like guy talk, like what you would talk about. It's like.
It's I call it more inclusive for us, because instead of it feeling like it's an interview at that point, we're just having a normal conversation with them. And the way, when you talk about subjects and it's so natural, it's like, man, I wish we had this, on recorded. Cause I mean, those guys are just,
go ahead, sorry,
they're just like us, man. They're people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you don't realize that they put their pants on like us. They're just people we grew up listening to. And, Vince, that was a great interview. Pat, everybody we've interviewed has been.
It's funny. I told you, Vince, and I talked to Crowley probably a couple of days ago, and he was telling me that, he obviously the power went out on our interview with him, and then he did an interview for Justin from Hell's Headbangers. Probably, I don't know, it was maybe a week after ours, and the batteries died on the camera. I think he's jinxed, man. It seems like it is the fucking camera's always dying on him. But yeah,
he's the dark overlord.
Yeah, he was telling me about that. But yeah, with our interviews, we try to shoot the shit with these guys and talk about the stuff that we would want to know. Like we were talking about, when we found out that the Heartbreak and Headbangers Ball is not shot at night, they're not hanging out party, and this is stuff I've always wondered. So we ask them this stuff. So it's if you have any questions, we do have Lord Armon coming on next week. So if anybody has any questions, they can email them to us at tampamorgue@gmail.com. And if it's not what's your favorite ice cream or pizza or this kind of shit, then maybe we'll ask it to them. We're not.
Yeah, we could always, because we, as much research, and I'll be honest with you, Tony does 99.99% of the research, and I'm just a hanger-oner, so it's awesome. I get to just hang
we're lucky
here and
though, because we like a lot of these bands we grew up listening to, so it's not hard. Then you gotta sometimes you miss by a year or two. There's some shit, there's stuff you forget to add. I wanted to even mention the Fuck You EP from Overkill, and I totally there was just so much shit that I forgot to mention that. And that was one of them. I remember when we were talking to Crowley, Frank from Obituary, the old bass, played with him at one time.
Frank
there's it's a lot of shit that you forget, and then when you come back to I forgot to ask that. But we do our best, and if you have anything you want to ask, you can always send it to us. You can always send us anything that you want to ask us, and we'll read it on here. And man, I tell you, I feel like shit, but and this was kind of like a bullshit episode where we figured we'd get together and just shoot the shit and check in and let people know what's coming up, because we do have stuff coming up. We are booking guests. We just don't announce it until we 98% know that they're coming on, because we don't even want to go there.
We don't want to look stupid.
Yes,
I wasn't sure.
We have some cool shit coming on, so.
I wasn't sure, yesterday, man. If I'd have talked to you last night, you'd have been like, dude, my throat was fucking ganked last night. I mean, my wife's
like, what, 4 songs yesterday?
Yeah, I got 4 songs done in 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Yeah,
that'll tear you up a little bit.
Yeah, man, that's consistent 4 hours.
And
That's
plus,
not
you had
like
some time off. You went. You didn't play Mexico. You went to Mexico. You didn't play
no,
Mexico,
yeah.
but you got off a tour a while ago.
Yeah,
so you
that's
haven't
what I
been singing
told.
every day.
Yeah, that's what I told Lee yesterday. I said, man, if we would have done Mexico, I would have been in so much better shape, vocally. But when you go in and I practice here, you know what I mean? But it's not the same. There's no intensity. So, and I can only scream so much, but it's not so much the actual, your voice. It's also the wind, being able to say, a million words in 2 seconds. It's all, you have to be in shape for that shit. And unfortunately,
and plus you're mental, right? You're like, as much as it, after like 5 minutes, you're totally cool and chill. Like you're going to record with Morris. This is like someone that you read in liner notes your whole life. So it's a little bit of an intimidation factor there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. It was definitely, like I said, bucket list honor. And, I'm back in this coming Wednesday, next week to finish whatever, songs we have for me done. I think I have a total of, it was either 6 or 7 songs that Lee had prepared. So we'll knock those out. And we got leads going on. Matt's flying in from Alabama to do leads. So the record's coming. I mean, we're moving it now. Actually, tonight, Mark Van Earp flies in either to Tampa or Orlando to start recording bass tomorrow with Lee.
This is pretty much the place where you get most of your monstrosity updates, I think, because
you're not going to hear it. I mean, unless Facebook, but we're, but yeah, for sure. No trade secrets, just trying to get this record done. So it, I know it's 2008. We were talking about it. 2018, they put out Passage of Time. So, 5 fucking years. Yeah, man. So,
a lot of shit coming out. Next year should be pretty busy. Even for us, we got, me and you have stuff coming out, and, we're going to get Skin Tomb shit, which is another band that me and Ed have been working on with Jim Ross. And we got, I won't mention the drummer that's going to play on it yet until it's sealed and done, the drums, but pretty exciting shit. And, that's pretty much,
and
I don't know.
I'm an idiot. Passage of Existence. I said the Passage of Time. I'm a fucking moron.
I do that shit all the time.
I had something completely in my head, and I said it. Passage of Existence, 2018. Yeah, great record.
I had Mike Estes playing on the Resurrection album one night. I told him he was in the lineup. I just mix words and fuck it up.
You would think I would know the band I'm playing in a little better, but I've got, I've got so much shit written down here for records, and
you're learning lyrics in the fucking in the morning,
fucking. But yeah, definitely. This is where you're going to get all your up-to-date news on everything, Tampa.
Yeah, and we appreciate it, and everyone checking in and listening. And like I said, these are not filler episodes, but we just figured, hey, man, we haven't been on this week. The last time was with Gustafson, so we figured we'd come on and say what's up. And I'm dying, so I'm pretty much going to crawl back into the back room and pass out with the wife, and then take kids to school in the morning. And that's pretty much my routine until the next, until whatever comes next. So we appreciate everyone for listening. You can check us out on, I should make a list so I can read this off the right way. But we're on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, just a shitload of places. I think we're
Facebook. You can always go to
Facebook,
the Facebook
Instagram.
page.
We check the Instagram a lot. Like the Facebook, I need to learn how to. It's kind of jacked up, that page, but we are on there. So if you can find us on there, you can always get a hold of us. Like I said, Tampa Morgue at gmail.com. The Tampa Morgue, and that's pretty much all I can think of right now. So we appreciate everyone as always. Let me cue up the. We appreciate everyone for checking it out, and we will see you guys either Sunday or Tuesday. And everyone have a good night. Thanks for checking out the Tampa Morgue. Ed, see you next time.